This is Crowkeeper Studios in Sacramento, California, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about production costs. It's something that doesn't really get touched on too much. I hear a lot of people say, production is very expensive. So I'd like to break that down and see if it really is all that expensive. But if it is, I'd like to talk about kind of why. What can you expect? Not only here, but at other studios, wherever you might be in the United States. That's kind of where I kind of would know about some of these things. So, first things first is the studio location. That's going to make a big difference with cities costing more in general than rural areas. Second is the engineer. The engineer is going to be able to charge you more based off of their experience and based off of the credits that they've had in the past. If they have, less experience and less credits, less overall credibility, or just lesser obvious work, quality, they're going to be charging less than the guys who are on the opposite side that have a ton of credits or a ton of, amazing sounding material, what have you. Those guys are going to charge you more. That's, kind of a given. And then you have the studio itself. The studio, it's the equipment, it's the size of the studio, it's the comfort level of the studio, it's the convenience, it's the capabilities. Can this studio do certain things that other studios cannot do? Those things make a huge difference. Some studios can record like orchestral, musicians, and other studios cannot. And the ones that can, they're probably going to charge you more than the smaller studio or the less capable studio can charge. That's a big part of it. Some studios, they charge you two different prices, so they're going to charge you the engineer price plus the facility, and then other studios are going to charge you. This is the way mine works. That you're being charged the complete price. You're paying for my time and the studio time collectively. So these are things to look out for. As far as my personal studio, I charge $55 an hour, and I'd say that the average cost for a band for a song is somewhere around $500. Some bands are going to take less time, some bands are going to take more time. And that really makes a difference between how well rehearsed they are, if they want to just come in and perform whatever they have, they've been performing at the shows, in the rehearsal room and all that sort of thing, or if they want to use the studio as an extra instrument, really. If they're wanting to do extra things, they're going to add more time. And some bands are like that. They want to experiment in the studio. They want to do, all these other fun things that typically can only be done in the studio. So those guys are going to take more time than the bands that, they've already got the song down pat and they just want to come in and track that, and, the song's not going to deviate that much from whatever they brought to the table. So there's that. And that boils down to something like $100 to $125 per song per member. So that's how much it costs, one dude to come and record a song, in general. $100, $125. So that gives you an idea at $55 an hour what the rough affordability of a song is per member. One of the common problems that bands run into is different members valuing the songs at different levels. And that could be because they're not primarily the writers, or it could be that they just don't really care as much, or that they're just in it for fun, or what have you. This sort of thing happens all the time where band members, he's in your band, and he never intends to spend that much money on, the music. And, the band ends up kind of growing and wanting to do certain things, and that particular member does not want to do that. That's going to make, turmoil in the band. These are things that need to be discussed in the band. Personally, you have to discuss them with your band to make sure that everybody is on roughly the same page, about how much is it going to cost the band. Like I said, here it costs the average band member like $100 a song. So if you're in a band where the members do not want to be paying $100 a song, then you have to make sure that you're hashing that out with your band before you come into the studio. It's going to make things a lot easier. If anything, it's probably better to feel like every member is willing to spend more than the amount that roughly it will cost you in the studio, because that gives you more time. You're in the studio and you're not worried about what it costs, because you think that on average it's going to cost me $100. I'd be willing to spend $200 on the song. That's not even a big deal or whatever. So if that particular song that I'm on is taking me longer than I thought it would for whatever reason, or I just want to have fun with it, I want to try these different things, explore in the studio, I'm not under time, I'm not under pressure, I'm not, upset at any given member because he took a little bit of extra time getting his performance right, or, whatever the case might be. You don't have to run into any of that sort of thing if the band members all individually feel that they're willing to spend more than the estimated cost at the studio. So I would say that's an important thing, because more time is really, that's the sort of thing that really makes the difference between good recording and a great recording, is just that little bit of extra time that you're putting into it. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. I did want to say too, like, if you're hiring other musicians too, like session musicians, that's going to cost you more time. Generally, that musician, he's going to have his own rate, $30, $40, $50 an hour, and then you're being charged the studio's time too. So you're being charged the studio's time plus the time of the other musician who's coming in to track, for you. Whether it's drums or bass or, extra stuff, pianos, whatever. Sometimes you can program that stuff in, and, many people do these days. But other times you just want a talented musician to actually, create ideas, of their own and, put that life into your music. And I think that's very important. Recently I did a session where I had a drummer that he was performing for, another band, and he was doing session work and did an amazing job and really brought some creativity to the band that, they may not have thought of on their own without him. The guy has his own, style, his own chops, and everything, and he's bringing that essence into the music, and those sorts of things are important, but those things cost, that's just the way it works. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on, a couple of these sorts of things, because people don't really have an idea of how much it will cost in the studio, or they're often thinking, actually I'll talk about this, don't ever think that you are going to pay the lowest part of the estimate, because what's happening there is, you're trying to make things work at a budget that, likely you cannot afford. I don't think that's a good position to put your band in, yourself or your band in. The thing is that if the estimate is, $1,000 to $2,000, let's say, for a group of songs, whatever the case might be, that's a pretty big number, but let's just say, and you're almost sure it's going to cost you, $1,000 because, dude, we're good, and blah, 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 blah. We kill it, yada, yada. Okay, now, if it ends up being $1,600, now you're, potentially complaining about it, or you're bitter about it, or XYZ, a bunch of different things that make this process not go as smooth as it could, or you're in the studio and, the lead guitar player, he's tracking his thing and he's kind of taking a little bit of extra time, and you're getting pissed off at the guy because, well, shoot, we're already at $1,400, now, and we should have already been done already. Don't do that. Just assume that you will be on the top end. Assume you'll be slow. Assume that, you are going to pay, the top of that estimate. So that way, if it lands below that, you're happy. You're thrilled. Everything's great. I really would not do the other way around. How affordable is recording then? I'd say it's pretty affordable. I'm not at the bottom, anywhere near at the bottom of the price brackets. And, it's costing the average member about $100 per song to record, which isn't all that much, And I say that it's not all that much, and I mean that relative to a lot of the things that, the average person buys, some drinks, some smokes, some guys, are smoke weed or whatever it might be. These costs all add up. And often, if they actually look at what they're spending on, they're spending a lot more on all this other stuff than, they do on music, or they spend it on that stuff, but then they don't feel like they should spend that same amount on something that's supposed to be important to them, which is music. These are things that are, definitely going to make impact the relationship with their band when, some problems may eventually crop up. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, what that is, that it's more affordable than you would think. I think whether you're recording here or you're recording even at a place that's double the, my price, you're charging, $110 an hour. That means it's going to cost every member, $200 a song, and for many people, $200 a song, that's not shit. I don't mind paying that much at all. And for other, people, they feel like $200, that's just ludicrous. But, it's something to talk to your band about and to make sure that everybody's on the same page roughly with what they expect to pay and how they value their music. That's a really important thing.